All right, my fellow dirt road travelers, it was bound to happen. We broke the Gladiator. Things are going to happen when you're wheeling almost every single weekend. So come along with us as we fix the Gladiator. All right, guys. So like I said, we ended up breaking the Gladiator. It was probably right about after Hungry Valley that we ended up starting to hear a noise. Now, from my point of view, it sounded like a rotational hum that just kept getting louder and louder and louder as we were driving along. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a grinding type noise that was rotational. Definitely changed with speed.
Oh yeah, so. It got louder. So it was kind of like, in my point of view, like when you put bigger tires on, you start getting that tire noise and it starts getting louder. This was way louder than a tire noise on the street.
Yeah, that's basically how it started out, and then it just kind of kept getting louder from there.
And so Nate decided that you were going to have to pull the diff, right? The oil in the diff.
Yeah, so I kind of narrowed it down to a problem in the differential. Mm-hmm. I was checking it out, and I saw a problem with the drive shaft, but that wasn't what was making the noise, so I wanted to figure out what was going on. So I pulled the rear diff cover to check it out.
Because you got to check the spider, right? To make sure that that wasn't what our problem was.
Yeah, I wanted to check to see what was going on in the diff, to see if there was something broken or what. And I was hoping not to see any metal, but...
Here's a few little shots of what it was like when Nate pulled it. All right, so when Nate pulled the oil, we were expecting to see some chunks. That's what you would expect if you ended up breaking the teeth on the spider. We didn't see any of that.
No, we just had a lot of fine metal.
Mm-hmm. Which you can expect some, right?
Yeah, there's always a little bit of metal in a diff, just normal wear and tear stuff. But this was more than what you should have. So I started leading me towards bearings. I was thinking we have an issue with one of the bearings.
Yeah.
And then I was able to run it after I took out the axles and the carrier and everything. I was able to still run the vehicle, and I could hear it from the pinion bearing. So that's pretty much what we figured out is going on.
Yeah. So at this point, Nate, okay, I should say with sometimes damage comes force upgrades, and we don't mind force upgrades in the least. So at this point, Nate is going to completely pull the axle out, and then what are we upgrading?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull the axle out. We're going to change all the bearings. We already have the 456 gears, so there's no reason to change those. It's Rubicon, so it already has lockers, so we're going to leave that alone as well. But we're going to put all new bearings in, and then upgrade the drive shaft and upgrade to chromoly axles. And the reason I'm pulling the whole diff out is because while I'm doing all this, I'm going to go ahead and put a rear truss on.
There you go. All right, so Nate's going to finish up and pull that axle.
All right, guys, the time is finally here to get started on the Gladiator. We finally got all the parts together. Big thanks to All Terrain Garage for helping us come up with the parts we needed. And we're going to get started on it now. So I'm going to go ahead and rip the axle out from under it to get started on the truss. Here we go. I'll just make a time lapse for you guys. Back from time lapse, and as you can see, the axle is completely out of the Gladiator now. So super stoked to have that out, and gonna take it over to Grandpa Steve's and get the truss welded up. I don't know if it came across on the time lapse, but if you guys saw the springs kind of come out of there, they weren't really under a lot of pressure. I had all the load off of them. They were just stuck in there pretty good, and the AEV luckily puts in really long springs, so it was dropped almost all the way down, and the control arms were just limiting it for that little bit. So as soon as I unbolted the control arms, the springs came out, but they were really under no pressure, so it wasn't that dangerous to do that. Just stay safe, guys. Springs carry a heavy load and they can really hurt you.
Alright guys, so I'm saying goodbye to Nate. He's going to take you on over to Grandpa Steve's and start that welding. I don't trust him around any kind of object right now, especially something that causes fire. So you go over there and you go weld those trusses. Alright guys, so bye to me. Going to go see Grandpa Steve.
Alright, here we go. Alright guys, just got over here to Grandpa Steve's shop. We're going to get started welding this truss on. We got the axle laid out on the table. I grabbed the truss and I see a few issues already that we're going to have to tackle. So let me show you what's going on. Alright, as you guys can see, we have the Artec truss here. Got the axle laid out on the bench. And our first problem is the AEV track bar mount, the raised track bar mount, is going to interfere with where the truss goes. But we have ourselves a Rock Jock adjustable track bar, so I'm going to go ahead and eliminate this mount, and then we won't have to deal with that problem. Alright, and then one more problem that we noticed is that the vent, the cutout for the vent on the truss is right here, which would be on the passenger side. And for some reason on my axle the vent is on the driver's side, which is kind of strange considering we just went and looked at Grandpa Steve's Gladiator, which is parked right behind me back there, and his is on the passenger side. So I don't know if they changed it from 2020 to 2021 for some reason, moved the vent to the other axle tube, but it's not that big a deal. We'll just cut a new hole in the truss to let the axle vent go through. So we're going to get started. See that? Watch your hands, guys. Flag nuts can get you. Alright guys, so with the rear track bar bracket removed, you can see how well this truss fits. I love using Artec products because the fit and finish on them is perfect. So the only thing we're going to have to do, like I said, we have to cut a hole here, or drill a hole here to get that vent tube, since for whatever reason it's on the other side on a 2021 Gladiator. But other than that, it all looks good. So here we go. Alright guys, we got that all cut out, so we're going to clean it up a little bit with the grinder, and then we're going to go ahead and grind on the axle, get all the paint off, and get ready to weld. Alright guys, we got all the paint ground off, and now it's time to weld. Alright, we're all set. We're going to get ready to start welding here. Probably going to put you guys on a little bit of a time lapse, so that way you're not having to watch the whole thing, but we'll film a little bit of it. Alright, here we go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and throw you guys on time lapse while we burn this thing in. I just wanted to let you guys know, if you are welding on cast, it's always a good idea to preheat your cast, and then make sure that you wrap it when it's cooling, because cast will cool at a different rate than the steel. So when you're welding on the axle, the housing itself, the third member, just make sure that you wrap it after you weld, so that way it has a chance to cool down slower and you don't get your welds cracking. Just a little bit of advice. Alright guys, just finished up the welding. I think it's good enough. I mean, I'm not a professional welder, but some of them came out pretty good. So let me show you what we got. Alright guys, I'm back here at the Dirt Road Ranch, and I got the rear end behind me, back from doing the bearings on it and getting the truss done. So we're going to go ahead and paint it up. I wanted to get it installed today, but unfortunately it's well over 100 degrees today and it's way too hot to work out here. So I'm going to get the paint on, and then later tonight I'll come out here and put the rear end in. I'm going to try to set up some lights and still get some video for you guys of me putting the rear end back in there. But I don't know how good the quality is going to be filming at night. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, let me show you. I'll get it painted up and we'll get started on it. Alright guys, I don't know how well you can see me. I know the light's a little bit bright and kind of difficult here, but it just finally started to cool off a little bit. It's probably about 8:30 at night. The sun went down and it's getting a little bit cooler. Now it's probably only in the 90s, so it's still pretty warm out here. But I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to show you guys some stuff while I have the axle out before we get started putting the axle back underneath. Alright guys, as you can see right here, this is a little mechanic trick for you. I don't know if I showed you guys this, but I got a coat hanger up here tied up to hold the brake caliper. And the reason I'm doing this is because you don't want to leave the brake caliper hanging from the hose or from the ABS sensor or anything like that, because you don't want to damage any of that. So this is a good way to keep it up out of the way and have it secure so it's not going to get damaged. So just an idea for you guys, if you're ever having to work on something where you got to remove the brake caliper, go ahead and get an old coat hanger or some baling wire and just go ahead and tie that up. And then real quick, we'll just go over a couple things. So you can see the shock right here. It's fully extended right now because there's nothing for it to press up against, and there's no weight on the vehicle or anything like that. So that's how you can get your overall length of your shock if you ever wanted to measure it with it off the vehicle or just fully extended. And then you got your upper control arm, upper rear control arm, lower rear control arm. These are still just stock control arms, nothing adjustable. You would see, you know, some kind of Heim joint or something like that if they were adjustable, but these are not. These are just stock. And then earlier in the build we talked about how I had to remove the track bar bracket. This is your track bar right here. What it does is keep your axle from moving side to side. It keeps it center under the vehicle. Because we did have to remove that bracket, that was an adjustment for this, for the ride height of the vehicle. We're going to have to put in an adjustable track bar in this place, so we'll have to take this out and put that in. So I'll show you guys when I get to it. Really the only other things besides all these main control arms and shock and brake caliper that has to come out to pull the axle is this has a connector for the electronic locker, so we had to remove that, and then the cables for the brake lines for the parking brake, and that's about it. There's not a whole lot to it. Oh, a vent for the differential. So if you guys are working on your vehicle and you notice that this vent goes up, it has to go to a pretty high spot so you don't get water in the differential. So if you ever see somebody leave that disconnected or put it down low somewhere, it's a really bad idea, because if you ever go crossing a stream or anything like that, you're going to get water inside the diff. So just make sure that goes up and vents properly somewhere up high. Alright guys, I was able to roll the axle back underneath here so we can get started going back together. I just wanted to show you one more thing that I did that'll probably help you guys when you're working on things. So I just wanted to point it out. If you notice here, when I was showing you guys the control arms and the shocks, you'll see I did one thing I put the bolts in there. So on all the control arms, on the shock, on the track bar, I have the bolt and the nut back in there. So that way when I go back together, I know which bolt goes where, and everything's right where it needs to be. The problem with doing this is obviously I can't line up the control arm brackets with the bolt in or anything like that, so I have to take all that out right now. So if you were just taking this out and putting it right back together, you probably wouldn't do this, but I knew I was going to have the axle out for a few days to get all the work done, so I wanted to keep the bolts there in a good place where they'd be easy to get to, and nothing's tightened down, it's just hand tight, so I can go ahead and take all these out now and start the install. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and get the coil springs back lined up, and when I was putting this back together, I just saw something that I thought I should show you guys. So right here is your upper spring pad, just a rubber pad, you know, nothing really that special about it, but if you see right here, there's a notch, and that notch lines up with the top of your coil. So let me show you that. Alright guys, so I have the coil spring right here, and like I was talking about, I have the rubber. So when you go ahead and put this back on, sorry for my poor camera work, trying to do the job and film at the same time, it's kind of getting difficult here. But so you want to line up this notch here in the top of the rubber with the notch there on the top of the coil spring, so that way the coil pad will sit flat. Also, I know there's other manufacturers that do this, but it's pretty common on the newer Jeeps. They do have a little locator here, so that's going to tell you where to set up this in the body. So in the upper coil mount bucket, you're going to have to line this up as well. So you line up the rubber with the coil, and then you line this up with the Jeep when you go back together. Alright, oh, you see those feet over there? I got Fawn out here to help me. I told her she has to put on shoes. She put on flip-flops.
I can't help myself.
I hope nothing falls on her feet. Don't work in flip-flops, guys. It's a bad idea. I'll set you guys back over here. Hopefully you can see. Alright. Alright, so yeah, so this is moving and it can fall, so
oh, that's fantastic.
The axle, so we need to really support the axle as well. Alright guys, I got the springs back in, got the axle back under, the control arm bolts through, so I think I'm going to call it a wrap for the night and then come out here in the daytime. It's going to be hot, but at least I'm underneath the Jeep now working, so I'll be able to have a little bit of shade and it'll be easier to film and everything with the light. So we'll go ahead and get started back on this in the morning. All right.
Alright guys, so right here is where I'm calling this video. There will be a part 2 to this where Nate replaces the rear drive shaft and replaces the rear track bar. So what do you guys think? This was the first time that we've introduced how to kind of a fix-it video to the channel. Were you guys happy with the general just going over everything, or would you like a more in-depth step-by-step video? Please let us know, because we do have that upcoming build with the JK where we give her V8 and 1 tons. So it would be really helpful for future filming to know what you guys are looking for. And speaking of that, I know Nate and I have 2 totally different personalities, and I think that's what makes us work. But if you guys want me popping in more of these videos where Nate is fixing stuff, I'd be happy to do it. I don't know how happy Nate will be, but I'm happy to do it for you guys. So please comment down below and let us know. And while you're there, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We are on our journey to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube to get monetized, and every little bit helps. And we truly, truly appreciate every single one of you guys. And coming up soon, we'll be going to Jeep Bash, so that'll be another video coming out. And we will be at Trail Hero, also bringing you footage from there. So guys, you know the drill. We're tired, hungry, and dirty. And that's going to be the end of this dirt road journey. Bye, guys.